How many mothers in the room? How many have working mothers in the room? Okay. No, how many of you have working mothers in the room? No kids, none of your mothers are working? You have, okay. So have you ever experienced the work-life balance guilt? Yes or no? Yes? No? Okay. Those who have working mothers, have you seen your mothers experiencing this work-life balance guilt? Yeah? So I want to share a story today. I am a mother of two boys, and this story is today my elder one is 10 years old, and the story began when he was 2. The story happened when he was 2 years old. Okay? I came home all tired. I had walked down from the bus stand to my home, throat parched, lips dry, everything. And I just wanted to have a cup of tea, a cup of green tea and some water. And I came and sat down, and my mother-in-law, the grandmother who had taken care of the toddler all day, she came down and she barged in with a list, a shopping list. Diapers are over, formula food is over, there are no veggies in the kitchen. Can you please go and get them? And I was like, why won't you call me up? And then she said, मेरे phone का charge भी खत्म हो गया है. Please get that also recharged. And I just got up. I didn't want to argue. I got up and I left. And that night when I came back home, I remembered something and I searched for it on my phone. And I read this interview by a super boss lady. And she had been promoted to being the CMD of her company that day. And when she reached home, she called out to her family, I have great news to share. And her mother came out and she said, whatever it is, it can wait. I need you to go get milk. And because she could not argue with her mother, because that was the way it was, the equation between them, she just went out, brought the milk, and things went on as they were. And she said, I wanted to share with you that I have been promoted as the CMD of the company. And her mother said, whatever it is, when you are coming inside this house, you have to drop that hat and come in as a mother, come in as a wife, come in as a daughter. Any guesses who this lady was? Yes. No, actually a very famous interview. And the point is, the story isn't even made up. When I read that story, my spirits, the battered spirits, they got lifted a little. And this is my go-to story every time I feel tired. आज शादी attend करना है, आज husband को support करना है in his business. My mother-in-law needs to go to the doctor. Hundreds and thousands of women find inspiration when they read this interview. This is a flagship interview of a woman leader who needs to balance, a world-class woman leader who needs to balance. So the point here is stories create that impact. And that day I had decided, you know, why I remember that day, because that day I had decided that if and when, more when and less of if, I become a leader or an influencer, I will make sure that I share my personal stories. So yes, stories are impactful, we've already heard about that, but personal stories can have even more impact because they come from a space of authenticity. And today I'm here to build up that case stronger, that how in our modern workplaces we can use storytelling as a tool for driving performance. So this is Indra Nui, we've all heard about you, so I made a case for that stories matter. All of you heard about Buffer? Has anyone used Buffer? Please raise your hands who all have used or heard about Buffer. Okay, Buffer is a web-based tool which helps you schedule your digital content. Okay, so if you want to post on multiple platforms at one go, you use a tool like Buffer. There are others, but we're talking about Buffer today. And these two are the co-founders of Buffer, Joel and Leo. So when they set up their organization, what they did was, after 1 year, they completed 1 year, they wanted to celebrate, and they went out for an offsite. And there they decided to share their own stories, their stories of childhood and how buffer came into being, because they thought that in the daily humdrum of corporate life and work life, the team has not connected well with them. They actually do not understand what made us start buffer, what made us set up buffer. So they started sharing their stories. And because they were sharing their stories as leaders, it was only obligatory that they asked their team members to share their backstories. And it became such a popular aspect of their offsite that they completed it next year. They brought it in next year also. After a couple of years in Hawaii, when they did this, there were 90 members. So they distributed them into smaller groups and they said, you should all stay together across the 2 or 3 days duration of the offsite, go to lunch together, have tea time together and share your stories. As they grew up, the model of sharing stories in person became a little impractical. So what did Joel do? They created a digital platform wherein people could share their own stories. So they said that there was that year's gap when we said, okay, operationally it's not possible, let's not do it. Employees started missing that aspect. They said that we want to connect better with our workmates, and this was one important tool, significant tool, which was helping us do that. So we got to reintroduce it, and that's why this digital platform came into being. The point is, when the owners, the founders of this global startup understood and found value in sharing personal stories, then why are we so hesitant in being open about our personal stories in our workplaces? We share our stories with our friends, with our family, with our siblings. Why not workmates? We spend a significant time of our life with them. In the modern ages, with fluid work timings, flexibility, we are actually spending almost, at least if not 50% of the day with them. Share your personal stories with them. Do that. Now, this is Anupama Dalmia. She's a very dear friend of me. Has anyone ever come across this name on the internet? You have? Yes. So, Anupama Dalmia is one of the top bloggers in India, parenting bloggers, okay? And I met her a couple of years ago when I started being a mom blogger. Why did I become a mom blogger? Because I had my second child and I had to leave my job. Now, leaving that job took a toll on me, emotionally, mentally, psychologically. Why? Because when I grew up, my father had 2 daughters, okay? So he had this task that my daughters should not suffer when they grow up. They have to grow up to be financially independent. And I started hustling through my college. A lot of you do that, I'm sure. I hustled through my college. I self-funded my post-graduation. I helped my parents. I contributed while they got me married. And I was happy in my space. But when I left my job, I almost slipped, because I don't know what depression feels like. It's too strong a feeling, but I almost slipped into that shell. I didn't feel good about myself. Somebody then suggested to me that you have a flair for language. Why don't you share your stories as a parent through a parenting blog? And that's where I met her. Now, her parents happen to live in Kolkata. So she was visiting Kolkata, and at that time, a work from home is a reality now, but for us, it was a reality 6-7 years ago also. So we had connected over Facebook, and she was coming to Kolkata. She asked me whether you would like to meet. We met, and I told her, you know, we started blogging around the same time, but you have become such a hotshot in the blogging space. You have so many awards. You are one of the top bloggers in India. It was a well-meaning compliment. But she being she, and quite receptive, she sensed something in my voice, and she said, Anupriya, I am no better than you in writing the blogs. I'm not doling out better content. I'm doling it out consistently, yes, but the point is I take pride in having taken that corporate break and jumped into this writing business. While for you, as you mentioned, it was just a stopgap arrangement before you figure out what else do you want to do. You do not take pride in being a blogger. I can see that very clearly. That shook me a little, a lot rather. It changed my perspective. And in the subsequent years, I also became to be listed amongst the top parenting bloggers in India. So in workplaces, when you have the power to influence somebody, you can actually give a twist to their stories, make them change their perspectives, and help them improve their performance. There are people who are enthusiastic, but they don't know what to do about performance. The self-belief is missing. They are capable. I was capable. I had the flair for language. I had the flair for technology. But because she helped me look at my narrative in a different manner, it made all the difference. Yeah? Yes, thank you so much. I happened to coach a lady who had been shifted from the main office to a client side office, and she found it very hard, you know, to adapt to that place. And when she came up to me, I tried to ask her that what is the big deal about going in a different office? You need to be adaptable. She said, yes, I know I need to be adaptable. Then what is the problem? Over a couple of sessions, it just turned out that she had actually been an army kid. And she had moved around so much, and she was tired from that activity of going to a new place, trying to get into that inner circle of people, find new friends, that she didn't want to do it anymore. She said, I moved from army to the corporate life and a civilian life because I didn't want to do that moving around anymore. And when they moved me from this office where I had been working for last 5 years, I was like, my world has been shaken once again. So what I did with her was, I tried to make her look at the good things that had happened because she was moving around so much. And what were the good things that had happened? One, of course, she had become adaptable. She had become very well traveled because she had traveled to some 7, 8 cities in India, lived in 7, 8 cities in India. And she had come to learn 6 languages apart from Hindi and English. So when she looked at those good things, that gave her an edge over the other counterparts, other colleagues, she felt better. And she also came to accept that adaptability is the way of life. She's going to, that acceptance came in. So again, in workplaces, there will be times when you will have to help people with their narratives. It's not my story. I didn't do anything. I didn't tell her my story. I helped her look at her own story in a different way. So what I had received from ANUPRIYA a couple of years ago, I gave it to my client. So that's what you do when you are able to use the power of narratives, power of personal stories in your workplaces. You can actually impact your performance. Now you will say, all right, I as a leader can help people. I can tell my stories like Indranui did. I can help you look at your story, but what is the model? There has to be a method to the chaos. So what is that method to the chaos? The method to the chaos was given by Chetan Bhagat. What did he do? So have all of you read, any one of you not read Chetan Bhagat books? All right, ma'am. So you might want to read 1 or 2 after you go back. So what happened is, Chetan Bhagat, when he wrote his first 2, 3 books, they were all based on his life incidents. Okay, the college story, the 2 states, everything. And if you notice, the protagonist has a disturbed relationship with his father. Yeah? Now, 2 states went on very explicit on depicting that relationship. And after 2 states was released as a movie, Chetan Bhagat went on record telling people that it was actually the real equation with my father, and after I wrote 2 states, it helped me heal my relationship. I didn't become friends with my father, but I just let it go. It wasn't toxic inside me anymore. So what he actually did was, And also, Chetan Bhagat has always believed that the best stories that he can tell are his stories, his life stories, or stories wherein he has been associated in some manner or the other. It gives him that point of authenticity. This word will come in throughout the day because stories are all about authenticity. So what did he do actually? He wanted to connect with the audience, right? So he was vulnerable enough. He was vulnerable enough to have the courage to share the lowest points of his life, the weakest links of his life. And once he had done that, he felt that catharsis, and he also got the confidence of his audience. He was able to connect with his audience better. This cycle goes on. I call it the 4C orbit of evolution using personal stories. Thank you.
Thank you for that lovely, we didn't feel that we are listening to someone, it's just like a story. So one of the challenges which I face, so I want to know from you. So when today workforce is all of millennials, and so there is a generation gap in the stories also. So the process that we would have gone through, whether we can give the same examples, same process, because our journey was very long, and today the process is so faster. So how you deal with those challenges when you speak to millennials?
Uh, an important aspect of storytelling is story hunting. So you have to be a good listener, you have to be a good hunter of stories. So before talking to a millennial, you got to do your homework, that before you talk to one millennial to help him or her, you have to talk to other 10 millennials who can help you understand the narrative. I will give you an example, and I'm glad you asked this question. The friend that I'm staying, I come from Kolkata, and I was staying at a friend's place last night, and she happens to be working, she's a doctor, and she works with millennials on gender fluidity. There are thousands of cases she had worked on counseling and helping them understand, guiding them on if you want to change your gender, if you feel like a boy stuck in a girl's body, if you feel like a girl stuck in a boy's body. She has worked with these people. Now these are the same millennials who go to the workplace. Now with that understanding, now I heard her, and with that understanding, when I go down and I talk to millennials, I will be sensitive enough first to be able to understand their narrative. So listening and story hunting is an extremely important part of becoming a good storyteller and a story identifier. I hope I've answered your question.